there. I'm presently trying to do about 2 weeks walking on the southwest coast path. It's my first ever hike. I'm historically a cycle camper and tourer, and I just felt I wanted to try something else before it's too late. So I threw myself into the southwest coast path and gave myself a couple of weeks. I wanted to do roughly 100 miles from Penzance up towards Plymouth, see how far I can get basically, camping along the way. Today I'm actually holed up in a very nice Airbnb in Falmouth. The reason being, it's a second rest day I've taken. I've been having a little bit of trouble with the ankle, and it's rather swollen yesterday after about a 12-mile hike, which for me was quite a lot. And basically thought, well, while I'm sitting here for the day, I could do a DeBag. So that's what I'd like to do. I hope it'll be of interest. As I mentioned, I've done a lot of cycle camping, so I felt before I started this that I knew enough to backpack and camp along the way, but it's really is a learning curve, and it's taken me several months before coming away to hone the gear down, to vary it to suit walking, to select boots and clothes and everything else that go better with walking rather than cycling, and to just try and lighten the load as much as possible. Notwithstanding that, it's still, to my mind, quite a heavy load. This is an Aether 70. All the research I did showed that this was one of the best backpacks to have, and it's proving to be very good, there's no doubt about it. I did try originally with a 60-litre bag, but no matter how I tried, I just couldn't seem to fit everything in that I had. I've also got a bum bag, or a waist bag. Considering it goes in the front, I guess a waist bag is more appropriate. It's not a particularly expensive one, it's one I sourced off of Amazon, but I really wanted something that would carry half a litre of water in the bottle here, so that that's available to me at all times. I wasn't, for various reasons, wanting to go down the camelback route and having the pipe attached to the bag. Found this extremely useful. In the back pouch here, I've got my binoculars, which more often than not I would be wearing, but when I'm not using them, or it starts to rain, they can go in the bag. A couple of snack bars in there, hand sanitizer, and I've got a face mask in there as well, so if I pop into any shops or pubs or anything like that, since COVID has been around, I've got the face mask to go with it. There's a central section there, which is actually empty at the moment, but normally my phone and my mini tripod would go in there. And then in the very front here, we've got some beef jerky, or whatever your choice of snack might be to keep you going. And there's also some spare toilet paper in there for when the need arises. There's a side zip pocket here, and again just a few essentials in there, some Nivea for the lips if you get a bit sunburned out there, some Afterbite if the insects prove a problem. The time that I'm doing this, by the way, is in early May, and I must say insects have been a very small part of any problem, really not been a problem at all. And the good old faithful camping penknife. So those are the sort of things I might need as I'm walking along, without the need to take the backpack off to get to it. And that's about it for the waist bag. Turning to the Aether 70, it's a pretty good sized bag, I'm sure you'll agree. And we'll start with the outside of it. First of all, I've got the tent strapped to the bottom. And the reason for that, in my rationale, was if I'm stopping anywhere, particularly if it's raining and I'm stopping to camp, the first thing I want to get off is the tent, I don't want it buried inside the bag where I've got to open up the bag in the rain to get to it. And it's worked very well for me. Wherever I stop to camp, I just throw these straps off, get the tent out, and away you go. This is actually a Gogh Helium Ultralight 200. I have the Gogh Helium Ultralight 100 for the cycle camping, and I'm very, very fond of that tent. It works very, very well for me. I got the 2-man tent version for the hiking, having realised that especially if it is raining at times or not very good weather, you want to bring the bag inside with you. So you just need that little bit of extra space to get everything out of the bag, to keep the bag inside the tent, and give you enough room still to live in the tent. So I won't take that out of the bag at the moment. That's what that is. Just dealing with the outside of the bag first of all. I have got a cut down plastic hammer there. It's not much left of what it originally consisted of. It was double headed and a much longer handle, but to be honest, it's quite essential, for me at least. Some of the rockier ground you find in some of these farm type campsites, you know, you need a little bit of extra help. Let's just see what else is on the outside here. If we turn it over, so coming over my shoulder here, I've got one of these very small drip clip by Trespass, this one. It's just a very small towel, so again, if either you're getting too hot and perhaps a bit sweaty faced, or if it's been raining and you want to dry something off, it's right to hand without stopping and taking everything off of the bag. The Aether has 2 side pockets. Let's deal with this one first. And in addition to the ½ litre water container that I have on the waste bag, I also have a 0.75 litre container there. Johnson's baby powder talcum. I hadn't brought any of this with me, but I have suffered quite considerably with the feet. Being a cyclist, I guess my feet don't get to harden off like a walker would generally. And with the coast path, you know, it tends to be extremely hard on the feet, so that I couldn't recommend highly enough now. I would always take that with me. And that's it for that. Just back here, there is one of these kitchen wipes, a little sponge, which I remember seeing on the Hayes channel and on Fit for Adventure, who I watch quite a lot of. Invaluable for drying off your tent or other equipment, or indeed yourself in some circumstances. Really, really good little tip. Something I've always taken with me on my cycle tours is one of these little fold-up mats. Ooh, not been cleaned since I was on the last campsite, obviously. Again, invaluable, either to sort of use as you go along if you want to sit somewhere and it's not particularly comfortable, but more often than not, it is my doormat, effectively, so getting in and out of the tent gives you something relatively clean to kneel on, and a chance to get some shoes on and stand up outside the tent. So I would always take that with me. And I think that's that for there. Turning around to the other side pocket, we have the titanium trowel, which is there for an obvious purpose. If you're wild camping or you're taking short out in the wilds, gives you the opportunity to dig a hole and do what you have to do. That brings me to this side pocket, which is actually on the belt. There are 2 pockets on the belt. And we have flushable toilet wipes, which nevertheless you need to pack and take with you. And some more toilet paper. And there should be in here, which for some reason there isn't. Oh yes, there is. There's also a lighter, just wrapped up in a cloth bag there, so that you can burn any paper if you need to. I have actually got space in there as well for some sun cream. And a spare bottle of hand sanitizer, because again, if you're going to be going to the toilet out in the sticks, you need to be able to clean yourself afterwards. I'll just try and put some of that back in there quickly. Okay, keeping with the toileting theme while we're at it. This is a portable urinal, which you can acquire offline from Amazon or eBay usually, and various other vendors I would imagine. It's an extendable, so once you open it, you can extend it fully, and it's generally good, you know, for 1 or 2 uses during a night in the tent if you don't want to have to get out. And when it's pouring with rain or it's particularly cold, getting out is the last thing you really want to do. Certainly I don't. This I brought with me. This is a bee-free 1 litre water filter. I reviewed all the water filters and decided to get one of these to take with me. Personally, I wouldn't bother to take it again on the coastal path unless you were adamant you were going to be wild camping all the way. And there were, that I've seen, a few opportunities where you could have found a stream potentially clean enough to use it in. The difficulty is that so much of the land that lies beyond the path is agricultural, and there's always a chance of either animal matter or chemical matter washing down with it, and these things are really good, but they don't apparently do everything. Okay, in the other arm pocket is my electronics. I have two of these Anchor, which is my preferred make, power packs. Each one of these will recharge my iPhone, I think 2.5 times. And in the bag are the cables both to charge this and to charge the iPhone. I looked at bringing a bigger one, but I just figured, well, if I've got 2 and I lose one, I've still got 1 left. If I've got 2 and I need to put 1 on charge, I've still got 1 to use. So the 2 smaller ones made more sense to me. And again, I'm doubling up on the cables, so that means if I lose a cable, I've still got something. Somewhere here, it's still plugged in, excuse me. Also acquired online is this folding plug, because 13 amp plugs aren't the easiest thing to put into your bag without the prongs digging through material or digging into you. This one I found online, and it's got a double port, so I can charge 2 things at once. It's got folding prongs and the folding top piece there, and it works very well. It all folds away neatly so that there's nothing digging in you, and so far it's worked extremely well. If you see this online, one tip that I got from somebody online about it is that getting this one out is quite difficult. So like the guy online advised, I just dug a small notch with a penknife just in the tip there, and that's just enough to get your fingernail into and pull it up easily. So now it works perfectly. So another little space saver which works well. that, I believe, is it for that. Okay, let's deal with the brain first. I was trying not to bring the brain, in point of fact, but decided to bring it in the end because on its own it didn't weigh much, and it meant that I could then just put a few extra things in there as I went along the route. If I wanted to buy something, I had a bit of space, like a pastic, for instance, which it's done several times. In the main pocket of the brain, things that I need to get to readily whilst I'm walking. First aid, always a good one to have. A very small sewing kit. And an elasticated and a non-elasticated line for fixing up a washing line, or maybe tying a stabiliser to the tent, to a tree, whatever I want to use it for. And finally, just a couple of plastic bags, which I found very handy at different times along the way for varying purposes. So not too much kept up there, as I say, that way if I buy something to eat or buy something else or find something along the way, I've got somewhere to stick it without causing too much disruption to the bag. Within the top pocket of the A30, it's actually holds its own rain cover, which is actually attached to it, and it stores up there quite nicely. You can actually take it off. I did originally think, as I say, of leaving the brain at home and storing it in the front pocket, but decided in the end to leave it where it was. And that's just one of a couple of luxury items I brought along. Doesn't weigh very much. It's a high D whistle because I like a bit of folk music on the way when I get the opportunity. Doesn't always go down too well in campsites, but just occasionally you get the chance to do something. Right, let's release this and start to look inside. Inside the top of the A330, A70, you have got another zip pocket here, which is totally empty. I've kept it that way on purpose. I didn't want to make it too heavy up the top. Better to have the heavier stuff down below, as long as you've got room in the bag, which I have. If you do decide to leave the brain off, you have got this inner flap which allows you to do that, and that will just tuck these things out here, pull these out, turn it over, come on, out you come, and that becomes the connection point for your straps, and it will hold it down and keep it as waterproof as the brain would, which, as we know, isn't 100%. Otherwise they wouldn't give you a rain cover. Quick release tab on here just allows you to pull that straight open, and I haven't actually got it fastened at the moment, but just inside there is also a red tag which allows you to tighten the load a little bit further from the top if you wish to. This is generally the order I would keep things in the bag. It does change a bit as I go along, especially if you're packing up in the rain, it gets thrown in a little bit, but at the moment, at the very top of the bag, because again it's something you might need as you go along for various reasons, this is my wash bag with a small microfiber towel attached to it. Within there, I tend to put my wash bag or my night bag, because obviously it always goes in the tent with me. There is my head torch. There is a bag which contains the more dry side of a wash bag materials, such as tablets and toothpicks, earbuds and earplugs for the night, things like that. Then in the rest of the bag, more wet gear such as toothbrush, soap, and because it is a wash bag, the owner's dog seems to be kicking off about something. Because it is a wash bag, I also leave in there the washing up liquid and the sponge for cleaning my food kit as we go. So everything there in the wash bag, and that goes in the tent with me in a very prominent position of a night time. These are Barefoot Sandals. These are actually from Decathlon, 4 class, not particularly expensive, about £20. When I've been cycle camping, I will usually take flip-flops with me, but because there was a potential for going in the sea or doing a bit of wading across rivers at times here, river crossings, I decided to get these because these won't rip off your feet, and they're extremely comfortable, quite lightweight, and I would definitely take these with me in future instead of flip-flops. Having said already that the tent is on the front, so I can get that off and get it erected, the next thing I'm going to need generally is my bed, or my bed mat, and this one is a Trekology A-Luft UL50 Ultralight sleeping bag. It was the smallest I could get at a reasonable price. Unlike some, it doesn't contain a lot of reflective material inside the chambers, but I have found it exceedingly comfortable, and it hasn't caused me any problems in terms of the cold coming from the ground at all. I have had some cold issues, which I'll explain in a minute, but this, I must say, I'm used to taking self-inflating mattresses, quite good ones generally, but they're about twice the bulk of this and twice the weight sometimes, or something more weight. And this one I've just found exceedingly good. Next comes my pillow. So we're slowly building the sleeping space. And in this instance, it is a Thermarest. Now, it looks quite bulky. It's a lot bulkier than the ones you can blow up, but quite frankly, I find a pillow is one of the most vital parts of my sleeping kit. And this has never failed me. In fact, I even use it when I'm staying in a hostel or in an Airbnb sometimes, because if they have a hard pillow, I just can't sleep. This gives me a good night's sleep every time and has never caused any problem. So that is one that's vital for me. And again, that's a Thermarest. Continuing on with the getting the tent ready to go into. This is actually an X-Ped bag, which allows me to compress my sleeping bag down quite nicely. This is one of the things I did have an issue with. It's a Gogh sleeping bag. It's an ultralight. It's not down. It's polyester or whatever fill. And mistakenly I thought it was a 3/4 season, and it turned out to be a 2/3 season. So the nights have been, quite cold at times, and that has given me a problem. I did have to go, having started in Penzance, I was one day out, and after the first night I had to go back into Penzance and get a silk liner from Mountain Warehouse or somewhere, just to sort of, help me deal with that. And that was in addition, I must say, to wearing my warm night wear, which I hummed and hawed about bringing, to be honest, but I'm glad I did. So that's the Gogh Ultralight sleeping bag, 2 to 3 season, which obviously I know now only would deal with late spring to autumn, late spring, early autumn. I should have had a 3 to 4 season. Excuse me. Clothing. Just put the bag out of the way for a second. too bad for spare clothing. Generally during the day, according to whether it's hot or cold, I'd be wearing what I'm wearing at the moment. One pair of merino socks, light pair of trousers, the ones that sort of dry easily, underpants, and a merino base layer, which over the top of which I would generally have something like this. This one's a Northridge, but a fairly light, very easy throw in the bag type top, but quite warm. Plus a merino buff, which again I find these buffs invaluable. They have a multitude of uses and ways you can use them, and definitely something to take with you if you're coming on a walk like this. And then the hat. Not everybody's choice of hat, but it's something I wanted to bring along with me, and I found it very useful. It keeps the sun off when the sun's out, it keeps the rain off when it starts to rain lightly. This particular model is totally foldable. You can squash it up, put it in the bag, do what you like, it takes its shape again. And I have adapted it with a clip and a piece of string, because if you're walking the coast path you'll find it's extremely windy, and consequently this stops you losing it. And when the sun does come out and it's a bit too hot, you can just literally take it off and throw it over your back, and it just stays hanging around on the back of the rucksack. So might look a bit silly at times, but it really works. So in addition to what I'm actually wearing, we have some spare handkerchiefs, a pair of lightweight shorts, a lightweight t-shirt, which, as I say, it's been quite cold on this trip, so I've not had too much use of that, but there have been one or two occasions where it's been worth putting that on. This actually, I think this is a Rab. Yeah, this is a Rab ultra lightweight t-shirt. I've got a couple or three of those that I've used on the cycle trips. They squash down to nothing, they don't crease, they weigh nothing. They're perfect. Then for those colder evenings in the tent, I have the fleece, or indeed some cold mornings. This is one again I've had for several years. It's a North Face, and again you can just scrunch that down in the bag, kneel on it to get the air out of the bag, and it doesn't suffer at all. Spare pair of merino socks. The merino top base layer I'm wearing is a long sleeve, so I brought a merino base layer short sleeve to complement that, so that it gives you a little bit of variety. This is a World Tour Travellers, not a brand I've heard of. I don't know where I actually got it from even. May have been Decathlon. May have been Decathlon. One spare pair of underpants, non-cotton of course. A pair of swimming trunks, which I had great hopes of stopping off at some of these coves and going into the water, but as I've mentioned a couple of times, it's been too damn cold, so they've not got any use yet. Maybe in the next couple of days, as I head towards the end. And that's it for the clothes. So as you can see, it's the bare minimum as far as I'm concerned of what I've got there. There is of course a couple of other things in terms of clothing. In the front of the 8th 70, we've got this nice stretch pocket, and during the day, unless it is actually needed, it's where I've got my raincoat. And this is not a particularly light item, but it's 100% waterproof, and it's a Berg House. No name attached to it that I can see, but It's a current model and it has served me very well. It's nice and warm if I have to put it on. It's got a very high collar. It's got a hood in the back of the collar, which will go over my hat without any problem, and it's proved very useful for those cold mornings or the cold evenings as I've been walking. Something I haven't had to use yet is Storm Shield. I think these might be Peter Storm. Yes, they are Peter Storm over trousers. I've been one day with rain and I missed most of that by luck. I was expecting to have to use those, but so far I've been very lucky. But certainly something to have with you. If you're going to be walking in the rain, you want a 100% waterproof top, you want a good hood, and you definitely want some over trousers. My boots are actually downstairs in this Airbnb, but they're Merrill Forester boots, I believe they're called. They're a new pair I bought, and they again are 100% waterproof. 100% probably, but they are a waterproof boot. So with that and the over trousers and the coat, had I had worse weather, I think I'd have been fairly well protected. And the last thing that's in this, two things actually left. One is an ultralight ground sheet. This is a gram counter gear. Bring it up to the screen a bit. I was quite pleased with this. It comes from a website called Ultralight Gear. And it's something I've used on a couple of occasions on this trip. If you're going into a campsite and you've got nice lush grass and it's been well looked after, then it's not really necessary. But in a couple of places I've stopped, the ground has been a bit tacky. There's been, you know, lots of leaf and maybe some few sticks around and things like that, a bit of gravel. So on those occasions, this is just enough to put under the tent and cover the actual sleeping area. It doesn't cover the whole thing, but it covers the sleeping area. This is a medium size, 2.1 meters by 90 centimeters. But again, very lightweight, and I felt that that was something definitely worth bringing along. Last thing in the front pocket, smidge. Not been too bad at all with the insects, as I mentioned before, but there have been a few sections where ticks were certainly a possibility, maybe some other insects. So what I've tended to do on those days is just spray the boots, my socks and the trousers, and maybe my arms if they're bare, with a bit of that, just to be on the safe side. If you were going to Scotland in August, definitely take smidge, because the midges aren't very friendly up there. Would I bring this one again? Probably yes, just to be on the safe side. That's emptied that out. I'm left now with my night bag, which, as it says on there, is lower body and hat. So basically in here, I throw this into the tent. If it's going to be a cold night, I will probably leave the merino base layer on. I have a pair of thermal long johns, as we call them, thermal underwear. And there is also a felt hat, a black felt hat, which I found very useful, not only for keeping your head warm during the night, but as soon as that dawn starts and the light comes up and you want to shut it out, you can just pull that down over your eyes, and it worked very well for me. So clean, dry, warm gear for the night time, absolutely essential if you're going to hit some cold weather. I have cycle camped twice now through to the south of France, and obviously the problems down there are a little bit different. You tend to get into the tent maybe about 9 o'clock, and you lay there sweating until it cools down enough to go to sleep. So you wouldn't need these, but if you're coming in England in May especially, definitely something worth having. Okay, I'm looking around me because something is missing here and I'm not certain what I've done with it. This is food. This is my food kit, and in here there is a variety of things such as snack biscuits, adventure nutrition, a long-handled titanium spoon, which is an essential to have in these sort of situations. And some breakfast snack flapjacks. So I've eaten quite a lot of what I did originally bring with me, and certainly these type of ready meals that you can actually boil the water, put it into the bag, let it infuse and rehydrate. They have been invaluable, quite frankly, because if you are feeling a bit cold and you haven't got anything around you where you can get something, it makes all the difference. Here we are. This is what I suddenly thought I'd lost for some reason. And this is my cook kit. Let's just have a look at that. This again has proved very useful. When I go cycle camping, I actually have a smaller container than this. But for the purposes of this trip, and for various reasons, I just felt this was a better option. I just carry this is actually a pencil case from Tesco. I've had this one for quite a few years actually, and I carry all my tea bags, my coffee bags, which these new coffee bags, which are available now, which I did have some out a moment ago and I've lost, but you can get these coffee bags and I find them exceedingly good. Other than that, I tend to carry Red Bush tea and maybe some instant chocolate sachets or something like that. But this sort of bag keeps it very good. Keeps it dry. Just, I wouldn't put it in the rain, but outside of the tent in the awning overnight it always seems fine. And and we just have a small titanium folding spoon in there as well, along with my lighter, the main lighter. As I said, I've got a spare down there just in case, but the main lighter is in there. So everything I need to get my cup of tea or cup of coffee going in the morning. The container I'm using, not an expensive item particularly, I think about 15–16 pounds. You can see various makes of this on the internet. This one is by Widessa, not a name I've heard at all. Fold out handles, both on the top section and the bottom. So this is your, could be a frying pan, it could be a mug. I use it as my mug generally. And in fact, this one didn't come with any measurements on, so I've actually put some little punch marks in the side of it with 100, I beg your pardon, 200, 300 and 400 millilitres measured out on the side, so I can fill it inside and know exactly how much water I've got. My burner unit, which is a BRS. That's a titanium, very small indeed. And I've used this one for several years. I carry a spare in point of fact because they were reasonably cheap and such a small thing. I thought chances are that's not going to work for forever. But so far it's never let me down. And it just folds away like so. Nice and easy, tiny and very lightweight. Inside here is my gas canister, which I've been using probably for 8 nights now under canvas. Use it usually of an evening for a drink and for the morning and for heating up the water for the dehydrated meals. And I would say it's still over half full, so that's doing very well. The little burner unit is quite efficient, and the actual heating element here, sorry, the heating section here where we put the water or the food, whatever we want to heat, has these little radial fans underneath which captures the heat better than a flat bottom, and it does seem very efficient. And lastly, inside is the windshield, which again helps with the efficiency and makes the gas last longer. And I believe there is very little left in here. There is, I mentioned I had a couple of luxury items, one of which was the high D whistle. Something here which is a little larger but also fairly lightweight is a timber rest easy chair. I'm of an age where I can't sit cross-legged on the floor. If it's raining or it's first thing in the morning before I want to get out of the tent and I want to make a drink in the vestibule, I need to be able to sit up. And this again I've used for quite a few years now. You can fold your sleeping mat into it and actually create a very comfortable chair, but usually I just sit on this section here on top of the sleeping bag so that it's not in direct contact with my mat, because there are some quite hard corners on this. And that just goes up behind you, pull the straps up, and you've got a nice seating arrangement, and you can sit there quite comfortably and not feel that your back is being strained at all. So, as I say, slightly bulkier, not too heavy at all, but for me, an absolute essential. And unless I'm mistaken, we have 2 things left. One is the silk sleeping bag liner, which I mentioned before I had to go back into Penzance to buy to try and make my sleeping a little bit more comfortable. Never used one before. I actually have one at home but didn't bother to bring it with me. I've got a wrap one at home, but I wouldn't imagine it's very much different to this. Silk is silk, I would imagine. It's a mummy bag. I did find it a little bit constraining, and as I said, when you want to get up for a pee in the night in the tent or whatever, getting in and out of it is just a little bit more difficult than with a straight sleeping bag. But that being said, it has been essential for me because the nights have been cold, so it has helped. A worthwhile purchase. We must surely be down to the very last thing in the bag now, and we are. This is my emergency bag. Let's just see what I consider to be needed for an emergency. These are things which I hope not to need, but they're there should I need them. Okay, some string. This is the tough type cord, very thin. It's what I've used on the hat to secure the hat to the rucksack for reasons I've explained, but just a handy to have, that one. A spare sponge for the washing up kit, and as I mentioned before, a spare BRS burner. Now, I've had this spare as a spare for probably 6 years, but I think it's sort of become a lucky omen. If I take it out now and not bother to take it, I'm sure that my original burner is going to stop working. So I'm committed to taking that. These are tent repair tape, it says, but in fact they are tent repair patches. So they are just slim patches which you can peel off, stick over a tear in the tent or a leaky seam perhaps if you had one, which I've never had with the Van Goghs, I must be honest. But it would give you the ability to repair if necessary. And this is a 10-pack. Which again I've not had a need to use, which is good. Quite a weighty item. A spare iPhone. Let's face it, we all rely on our iPhones or our clever devices, whatever they are, so much now. But they can go wrong, we can drop them, they can get stolen or anything else. So this and a spare SIM card, perhaps even a cheap pay-as-you-go, so that you would have connectivity in the event of something going on, would be invaluable. Yeah, for navigation, for contact with the outside world, for photographs, for music, you name it, everything revolves around my iPhone. So a spare of those I do consider as an essential in the emergency bag. Another couple of items on the tent repair front, a little bit of spare fabric which is sticky backed again, and a tube repair. So should the main tube on the tent break for any reason, that would give me an opportunity to repair it. A spare bank card for a second account that I hold. Again, if I lose my bank card, my money, whatever, I would have something stored separately so that I can actually get to an account and get myself out of trouble. What have we got left? Just a small plastic bag, comes in handy, and a spare one of these sponge pads, which mainly is there because the iPhone has been sitting inside that at the bottom of the bag, and it's afforded it protection along with my card and the other bits in there. And the only other thing in there actually found its way into there whilst I've been away, and it's a nut and bolt. I had to buy 2 of these, and I only needed one to replace the tensioning device on my walking pole, which broke. So I was fortunate enough to be able to find somewhere to get a bolt and fix that. So that's just stayed in there in case the other clamp was to fail as well. And that, I think, is everything. Yeah, I think we have just about debagged everything. I hope it's been of interest.